On the air. Now? Yes. All right, I trust all of you are fired up. Fired up, eager, and ready, prepared to finish.
The new truth.
Sir?
We accept the new truth. Go ahead.
No. Just, that's up to you, I guess. Chapter 21. Chapter 20, we saw the Romans come to an end, so John sees a new heaven and a new earth that God has created for us because the first heaven and the first earth passed away. Chapter 20, verse 11. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. Then I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the tabernacle, come on, I don't think we looked at that last week. Yeah. Behold, the tabernacle of God is among men, and he will dwell among them. And they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them. Verse 4, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning or crying or pain, for the first things have passed away. The first things that have passed away, of course, is the terrible tribulation or persecution that these first century Christians had had to endure at the hands of Rome. And I think we looked at that we are today the temple of God. I think we looked at that last week. And I think we looked at Isaiah, where his promises are very similar, his language is very similar to what John uses with the language of judgment and the language of blessing. This, of course, is against Babylon, where he promises, God does, that he will give you rest from your pain and turmoil and harsh service in which you have been enslaved. And of course, he's talking about the conditions that they had to endure under Babylonian repression. Isaiah 65 describes the circumstances under Jesus, if the Jews would accept him. And the languages, and there will no longer be heard the voice of weeping and the sound of crying. And in Isaiah 30:19, I think we've looked at all of these last week. He's discussing their troubles with Assyria. O people in Zion, inhabited in Jerusalem, you will weep no longer, and he will surely be gracious to you with the sound of your cry, and when he hears it, he will answer you. And my only point is to make is that the language that John uses in verse 4 is nothing new. It is all through the Old Testament, especially Isaiah. And we talked about this, Jesus, what the glory that Jews would enjoy under Jesus again if they would only accept him. And we talked about all the lion, the bear, and the snake, remember, playing by the snake's hole and so on and so forth. Isaiah 25:8, the Lord God will wipe away tears from all faces. And this is concerning their enemy, perpetual enemy, Moab. And this is the language of God's blessing of his people after Moab is dealt with. Okay, this brings us to a rather interesting verse again in Isaiah 28:14 through 18. Let me get here. This describes the Judean leaders who had made a covenant with death. And they had made a pact with Sheol, which is simply another way of saying the same thing in Hebrew. And the point is, they had bribed, Hezekiah had, 2 Kings 18:2 and 3, had bribed Assyria, who was right at her, almost at their doorstep, to leave Judah alone. Now, what should they have done rather than stripping the temple and the treasury of money to give to the Sennacherib of the Assyrians? And what was God so upset about? They didn't trust God. No. In fact, at another time, they went to Egypt for help. Wherever they thought they could get help. Where they thought they could get help. And what he's saying, what you have done, you have made a covenant with death depending upon the Assyrians. And the same will apply to making a covenant with the Egyptians. Because God's going to see that both of those are going to what? Fail. They're going to fail. And it's interesting that he uses, you've made a covenant with death. Then he says, the overwhelming scourge, the Assyrian army, will not reach us when it passes by. This is the words of Israel, Judah. For we have made falsehood our refuge and have concealed ourselves with deception. So somehow they thought that this bribery was going to work, but I think they saw the truth in it in that last line there, that it's a deception. And it turned out to be a deception. Verse 16, therefore thus saith the Lord God, I am laid in Zion a stone, a tested stone. I hope all of you are familiar with this. A costly cornerstone for the foundation. He who believes in it will not be disturbed. His point, here's where you need to look. It's to me, because I'm a stone. I can be counted on. I'm stable. God assures them that their only Savior under these circumstances is God Himself. And the New Testament, of course, picks this up and applies it to who? Jesus Christ. So, verse 17, he says, I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the level. Then hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and the water will overflow the secret place. That's talking about what's going to happen to Judah. Your covenant with death will be canceled, and your pact with Sheol will never stand. When the overwhelming scourge passes through, then you become its trampling place. Israel, every time they looked for help to surrounding countries, met with failure. And that was what was so unique about Joshua and Moses. If they had trusted God, they would have been fine. They would have been fine. Trust me. But they looked at the number of Assyrians out there around the city and said, didn't even think about God apparently, or didn't think He was able to take care of it. Let's go to verse 5. And He who sits on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. A reference, of course, to the new heavens and new earth. And He said, write, for these things are faithful and true. Then He said to me, excuse me, it is done. I am the Alpha, or the beginning, and the Omega, the end. And then He gives you what it means, the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of the water of life without cost. He who overcomes will inherit these things. That's with verse 3 and following. And I will be his God, and he then will be my son. And all of this deals with the conditions under the new heaven and the new earth that God is going to create for His people. So it seems to me it disagrees with what we have been saying all along, that the oppressor is gone, and God grants that their future is secure as long as they do what? Trust in Him. And then if they are classified as overcomers. Verse 6. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He is the everlasting one. He has the answer from beginning to end. The actual meaning of this phrase is hard to really grasp. But anyway, everything is summed up in Him. Then he talks about in verse 6, the springs of the water I will give to, let's see, what's it say? I will give to the one who thirsts from the springs of the water of life without cost. Is that something new?
Told the woman at the well, he
That's right.
having water.
It's not, it's nothing new at all.
Time is coming when, if you say, if you do this,
That's right.
trying to think. The exact words I was trying to.
Okay. Okay, so this is an indication that the ones who overcome are promised a continuation of the things that they have already been enabled by God to enjoy. You'll still be able to come to the springs of the water of life and enjoy those. And then in verse 8, he says, but for the cowardly, unbelieving, and abominable, and murderers, and immoral persons, and sorcerers, and idolaters, what a list. And all ours, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at verse 7 and verse 8, I see that the Lord is still offering people a choice. You can be an overcomer, or you can be the cowardly, with a list, terrible list of sinners or sins in verse 8, and it's up to you to make the decision as to whether you want to choose one fate or the other. Now, I think I mentioned pretty clearly last week that I understand the new heavens and the new earth to be the environment, specifically, the environment with the Roman oppressor gone, but specifically, it has to do with God's people in the church, the New Jerusalem and the new heavens and the new earth, specifically the New Jerusalem. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven last plagues came and spoke to me, saying, come here and I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. Now who does he show to her? To him. The New Jerusalem. Now who is the bride of the Lamb? All through the New Testament. God's people, the church, yes. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God. Her brilliance was like a very costly stone, as a stone of crystal clear jasper. The new heavens and the new earth are going to have a capital city, so to speak, and it's going to be the New Jerusalem. Now, notice that the New Jerusalem comes out of heaven. It is not mentioned as being heaven itself. It comes out of heaven. And now we're going to see a description of her almost unbelievable preciousness and value, at least as we view it from God's point of view. It had a great and high wall, of course, to signify absolute protection, safety, with 12 gates. Keep count of how many times we use the number 12 in association with the new heavens and the new earth. At the gates, 12 angels, and names were written on them, and which that's on the gates, not the angels, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. And the wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Now, what does the number 12 signify? God's people. God's people. God's people. 12 apostles, so 12 patriarchs in the Old Testament. It has 12 foundation stones, and in Ephesians 2:20, we hear of the foundation of the apostles and the prophets. So that fits perfectly with the New Testament times. The one who spoke with me had a gold measuring rod to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. The city is laid out as a square. Its length is as great as the width. And he measured the city with the rod 1,500 miles square. Its length and width and height are equal. And it is a cube. Exactly. And he measured its wall 72 yards, or over 2 football fields thick, according to human measurements, which are also angelic measurements. And now we're going to get the staggering description of the city's preciousness. The material of that 216-foot wall was made of jasper, and the city was pure gold like clear glass. Now, if you want to mark in the margin of your Bible, Ezekiel chapter 42, verse 20, we have a man under God's command doing some measuring back in Ezekiel. When John measures, he learns that it's huge. Basically, the Holy of Holies was a cube in the tabernacle and then later in the temple, except this one is 1,500 miles long. In other words, it's further than from Jerusalem to Persia in size. Much more, probably double that. This is the city of God's people. Everything about the measurements tells you that this is the city of God's people, with 12 and 12 and 12 over and over again. Now, in verse 18, Isaiah even has introduced us to this concept also. He's talking to his people. O afflicted one, storm-tossed and not comforted, behold, I will set your stones in antimony, and your foundations I will lay in sapphire. So even that has a precedent in the Old Testament to signify how valuable and precious it was really considered by God. Verse 19, by the way, all of these stones, some of the stones, we are not sure of what they are. So if your translation is different from mine, don't hit the panic button. The foundation stones of the city wall were adorned with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation stone was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls. My goodness, we can't get away from 12. Each one of the gates was a single pearl. That's where we get the idea of the pearly gates. And the street of the city was pure gold like transparent glass. Now, from the stunning beauty of the outside, now we're going to go take a look on the inside. Verse 22. Inside it, he said, I saw no temple of the Lord, for the Lord God the Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. Now, what was the temple's purpose? What was the main function of the Old Testament temple? Sacrifice. Correct. That's why there's no temple. Where does God dwell now? In each one of us, in his church, if you prefer. And the city had no need of the sun or of the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God has illumined it, and its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. Where did these nations come from on the view that the New Jerusalem is heaven. What are we still doing with nations there? What are we doing? We've got God's people. Yes, where are the nations coming from on the view that this is heaven? What are the nations? Nations always means through the book of Revelation and in most other places, unsaved people. Now what are they doing there? It's because it's God's church. We've got unsaved people all around us. But look what the church provides for these people. They will walk by the light of God's people, of the church. It will give them light to walk in. They're not part of it, but they can still walk in its light. And the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. Jerusalem is going to be well lighted, and it's because of that the nations will come to her that they may walk in her light. Verse 20. Isaiah had said this of Jerusalem. Your sun will no longer set, nor will your moon wane, for you will have the Lord for an everlasting light, and the days of your mourning will be over. My goodness, Isaiah has been a great help with this book. A great help in understanding John's language and his approach. Let's see. Go back to verse 24. Okay. We've already talked about that. In the daytime, there will be no night there. Its gates will never be closed. Fits the church perfectly. For they will bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. And nothing, I'm sorry.
What does that mean? They'll bring the glory and honor of the nations if the nations are unsaved.
Kings have always contributed to the church. Rich people. They just have. I don't know whether it's for conscience problems, but unsaved people have always contributed to God's people. Not universally, but they do help contribute to God's church without being part of it. I remember Egypt, when they left Egypt.
You can remember back then?
Yes, I can. I was there. You remember when they left, what did Egypt do?
They sent them out with gold and silver.
They sent them out loaded.
Tons and tons.
Yes.
All the gold that they built the tabernacle with, and that they built up their calves too, until they got burned. But even the gold that the temple came from, most of it had to have come from Egypt.
Yes. And I'm thinking of, didn't the king of Tyre contribute greatly to Solomon's effort to build the temple? He was one of these kings of the earth. Those are the two that just popped into my diseased mind. You may think of some others. Let's see.
I have a question on verse 24. It's not up there.
All right, I get back there. Okay.
24.
Yep.
Okay. My version says, and the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light.
Wow.
What version do you have? Wrong.
I
Oh.
have
Did you
it.
just New King James? Well, that explains it. Now, this is genius.
Does anybody else have the nations and then what? Who are saved?
My bottom down here says other, whatever the MSS means.
I'm sorry?
Other, whatever the MSS, I added all those who are saved.
Oh, okay. It's a different manuscript reading.
Manuscript.
Okay. Okay, that's the first time I've noticed that, Jenny. I'm sorry. I know the word nations generally refers in the New Testament to Gentiles and or unsaved people, and that's where I got the idea, because I checked it in the, I think I read it in the concordance run on the book of Revelation. It's ethnos, in Greek, E-T-H-N-O-S. Okay. Let's see. And they will, verse 26, they will bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it, and nothing unclean nor anyone who practice abomination and lying shall come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. So the description here is one of great glory for God's people, and of course great gladness after the Roman threat has been eliminated. Isaiah, your son, I think we've already looked at that, had picked up, used that idea before, 800 years before. Any questions on chapter 21? I understand the new heavens and the new earth and the new Jerusalem to be a new environment for God's people, the church.
Well, even if this version, Jeannie's version, is, anyway, but even if it is correct in talking about those that are saved and the healing of the nations, before the time of Christ, the nations were the Gentiles.
Yes.
It was either the Jews and the Gentiles, and the Gentiles have been brought into that, and it may be referring to the Gentiles, the saved Gentiles.
It could.
As
It could.
opposed to the saved Jews.
Okay. I'll allow that. I just hadn't run across, I guess I didn't check the New King James thoroughly enough on that. Outline.
What was the chapter and verse in Ezekiel that you told us to?
42:20, I believe.
Yes, that's it.
In fact, a scanning of Ezekiel, beginning with chapter 40, you'll see some of the images and language that John borrowed, beginning with chapter 40, because it's Ezekiel's vision of this temple that's going to be built on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. And this is what our premillennial friends and our Jewish friends are still looking for over in Jerusalem, Israel today. They expect that that temple is going to be built where that Muslim mosque is. Now you talk about fireworks, if that was ever attempted.
If they really believe that, it would behoove him to go ahead and clean that mess off and get it ready.
Who's he? Who's he?
What? It would behoove the Jews to go ahead and get rid of the
Oh, the rock.
so that they can get
Oh my goodness.
their money for it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay.
This might be a silly question.
There's no silly questions.
Do the Jews in Jerusalem now, do they think that's going to be where the New Jerusalem is?
Yes.
But they are. but
They
they're
believe the
getting-
temple is going to be there,
They're
rebuilt.
not getting it from Revelation.
No, they're not getting
Ezekiel.
it. They're getting it from Ezekiel.
But the 1,500 square miles wouldn't be fit.
No, you'd be limited to their concept would be from Ezekiel, not Revelation. As far as the Jews are concerned.
Ezekiel's temple was a very big temple, but not like that. It is still a big question to me what it's supposed to be standing for. Well, it was never built.
No, it was never intended to be built, in my humble opinion. Okay. All right, chapter 21 is the church vindicated and triumphant over Rome. It still today shines among the nations, and they still walk in the light of it. No enemy, however large or strong, would ever make a dent in this wonderful institution.
And it is, we think, from for example, Lot, when Abraham was bargaining with God, if
Sodom.
Right. Righteous souls. And we're told other places that it is because of the righteous that God does not come in judgment of all nations sometimes. That he withholds judgment on them because of the righteous that live there.
Yes.
And so our nation
Slipping.
has slipped quite a bit,
Yes.
but we still have
Enough.
the righteous.
We hope.
In the here, and the righteous, the effect of it is our nation is a very giving country and taking care of
Yes.
it. And we can only pray that we can continue to be that way, and God will not decide to come in judgment on us.
Yes. 22:1. John says, then he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal. This is also in Ezekiel. You remember the water coming out from the throne that starts out ankle deep, and then it goes further and it's knee deep, then it goes further and it's waist deep. All of it coming from God's temple or God's throne. So this is also drawn from the picture in Ezekiel. From the throne of the Lamb in the middle of the street, of its street, on either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing, here we go again, how many kinds of fruit? 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Now this is one of my main points of making, that in this view we still have unsaved people outside the walls of the New Jerusalem. These are people who need spiritual healing. If it's in eternity, the devil has been dealt with, all the sinners are in hell, and there are no, what do I say? For the tree for the healing of the nations, because that would be totally unnecessary. Because all we've got in heaven are healed, saved people. There will no longer be any curse, verse 3. And the throne of God and the Lamb will be in it. And his bondservants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. And there will no longer be any night, and they will have no need of the light of a lamp, nor the light of the sun, because the Lord God will illumine them, and they will reign forever and ever. Now, verse 1, I think this speaks of the blessings of God provided for those righteous people who are part of the New Jerusalem. Blessings from God through the righteous into the barren and dead places of the world. That's what we're supposed to do. We provide light for the nations to walk in. And here it says, this river, verse 1, of the water of life coming from the throne of God, and it goes out yielding its fruit, and it also reaches the unsaved people in the last part of verse 2. And the leaves of this tree were for the healing of the nations. Now, that reference, by the way, in Ezekiel is chapter 47, 1 through 12, that refers to this. And I noticed in the last part of verse 1 that the throne is of God and the Lamb. Now, I thought that after the end days, or time was summed up and eternity ushered in, that Christ was going to do what with the throne? The kingdom. He was going to yield it back up to the Father. So here's another indication that this does simply not fit that picture at all. Okay, my goodness, it's 8 o'clock. Questions? Rocks you want to throw? Anything? Okay, I hope, with luck, we'll finish next week. And then I'm going to do a review, just a brief review, And then I'm going to be looking to you for some suggestions as to what we're going to do next.
What I love is when it keeps talking about the water and the pure crystal water, and I keep thinking, you know, water is so good, but there's nothing better than untouched, untreated water.
Fresh
It's
water.
like you can drink it and drink it and drink it.
Yes, yes, and especially if it's the river of the water of life, yeah. All right, let's pray.
Don't you,
I'm sorry, Butch?
make the brief review too brief.
Don't make it too brief. One class? At least. Okay, all right, hopefully it will be able to tie it all together, because there's another indication in chapter 22 that deals with the time of the contents of that vision's happening. Okay, we've looked at the first couple of verses in chapter 1, the time is near, and then in chapter 22 we'll see two more, but there's another very strong indication that it tells us that this was done or fulfilled originally during the days of the seven churches of Asia. Let us pray. Again, Father, as I always ask, bless us with understanding, bless us with wisdom, and bless us with a thirst for the knowledge of your word. Bless us with an eagerness to learn what you have to say. For then, Father, we can more perfectly learn to live for you and be a glory and a blessing to those around about us. Be with us as we leave. In Jesus' precious name, amen. There's just too many things in there that yes. Yes. Excuse me. Everything about God's message is a big deal. Well, generally, if it comes out of the earth, it's